Hello, Jamie from Inky&Scrappy back with some Steampunk-y love and Lawn Fawn's Swish-n-Pop pull tab for a flying tool and robot. It was, just a match made in heaven. So the flying wrench is from the Such a Tool stamp set by Ink Road Stamps, drawn by yours truly. It was a memorial stamp that I did for my father. And so I had fun with this one, and I made a bunch of valentines for my nephews and nieces, and I know, amazingly got them in the mail. It doesn't happen very often. So I slowed this one down for you, at least for this part of the coloring, and then I'll slow it even down more for the wings, just to kind of show you how I color this one. I'm coming in with some cool grays. I just kind of picked a couple. I didn't, I think I ended up picking two for my wrench, a darker and then a lighter tone, and then I just kind of blend them together to kind of give me a little bit of, definition and some high points, low points in that, where you would normally see them. Now for the wings, I'm bringing in an RV0, I think 030 and blue 020. I don't remember on that one. If you caught it, your eyes are faster than mine. But this is how I did the wings on them. I kind of came in with the blue. I did do the brush tip on this one just because I like this method a little bit more with the brush tip, because you get, it's a brush tip, so you get a little bit more of a softer movement with it, wherein you can do it with the bullet tip. It's harder to feather it on, I guess. So I hope that makes sense. So all I do for this one is I'm going to come in with the pink one. I'm going to do the exact same thing, but from the other side, and then just picking it up, or making it lighter as I get into the blue. So I'm really just kind of mixing the pink and the blue there to kind of make a third color of purple. And I just love how these wings turned out. They're very light, delicate looking, and just kind of a lot of fun with that the two colors mixing and making that third tone. I like how it turned out. So I did one on camera for you. The rest of them I did not. So I did a whole bunch of them and used the Brother Scan and cut them out. I'm using Whimsy's robot stamp set. I started with the one, and then I colored him a bunch of times, right? And then I decided to bring in some of the other ones, or the other one that looks like it's, a little needing of some wrench materials. This one I thought looked like he was just looking at that wrench in a lovey kind of way. And so that was kind of why I started with this one. Again, this is the first time I colored this one. I did do some other colors on my other robot images, and I did bring in some more pinks, and I think I did some pinks and blues on, and maybe even some purples on my full set of cards, so you will see the full set at the end. But ultimately, coming in with that dark one, kind of figuring out where the darkest shades are, and then coming in with a mid-tone and kind of pulling that out a little bit, and then coming in with the lighter tone and going over all of that area. So I did speed this one up quite a bit. So this one is 5.2 times faster than I moved. So yes, coloring takes time. Practice makes better. I don't want to say perfect, because it's not necessarily perfect. And then I did bring in a light yellow for the center there, because I figured his eye would probably have a light to it to kind of show that it was open. I don't know. Makes sense, right? And then some red for the heart. Kind of coming back in with the darker tones, I felt I lost a little bit of definition, so I brought those back in. I do believe off camera I may have added, I don't know if I did it to these, but I did it on my Let's Start Stamping series ones, where I added some more detail to the little rivets. So yeah, on to the background panels here. So I'm only showing one, I think, background panel on, completion. I ended up doing, I think I did like 7 cards, maybe even 8. I got tired of inking backgrounds, but I go in with my lighter blue first. It's a dye ink, and then I'm coming in with Petal from Close to My Heart, which is kind of I'm trying to think what shade of distress ink it might be close to. Kind of like a light Concord, kind of a dusty purple look. Now I have this heart stencil. I don't remember where I picked it up. I'm pretty sure I got it in a stack of stencils. So it's just a cute little heart stencil that's hearts in a heart shape. So I'm just bringing in some pink for this one. I used some Oxide, Distress Oxide ink for this one. I want to say I used Kitsch Flamingo, but I'm not positive, and I don't think I actually show it on screen. So yeah. And then I'm bringing in my blue blending brush for my oxides and just kind of adding a touch of that over the top. It kind of adds in that same, to match the wings of the wrench. And now I'm bringing in that pull, the Swish-n-Pop pull tab. I guess this is like your mechanism or your main die to make it work. So it just punches the holes in the bottom. So if you don't have it, you could definitely, you know, punch holes like so, and then it gives you kind of some options. So if you know, this one gives you 4 options. You can kind of play with your mechanism as you go. I'm bringing in some steampunk-esque embossing folders and going to run my black bases through my die cut machine, and then I'm going to rub some, I think I ended up doing Lost Shadow on those, some of them, and then I tried to do the Hero Arts pigment ink on some of them. I would say I have Z'd on them all. I can't say I preferred one over the other. They were about the same, to be honest. So for the Swish and Pull tab die, or I guess the swish part of it, cuts out that little circle area on the bottom, and then of course your line. I cut that from some heavyweight acetate. I use projector transparencies. I picked them up on Amazon. I went for the whole, you know, like ream of them because, yeah, I will have enough transparencies for quite a while. But this is kind of where you figure out where your placement is going to be. You can do the first hole, second hole, third hole, or fourth hole, and kind of that's going to give you kind of where your image is going to be or where it's going to fly to and from. So this one, it starts on that side, and sometimes, you know, so my robot was the opposite direction that I needed it to be. It's fine, because once you pull it, then the dragonfly or the dragonfly wrench will fly across going the other direction, you know, the other way. So this wasn't exactly how I wanted it, but it works, right? So I'm going to take that pull tab piece. There's like a little cutout piece. I'm going to run that through the die cut machine. Ultimately, you don't want to hinder the movement of your pull tab there. It's not going to be like a straight line pull tab. It kind of needs a little bit of wiggle room. So we'll get to that when we add in the foam tape to kind of help with that movement. Now, I started with it kind of on the top and realized I didn't want it to be that way. I kind of wanted the direction to be at an angle, but I want to make sure that my angle is going to be okay all the way across my pull tab. I like to put double stick or score style tape on that pull tab piece here, and then I will end up figuring out my placement. So the big thing on this one is I need my wrench to kind of be in the proper position for when it's all the way closed. So it's mailable, so it's not hanging off of the card, right? And then of course, once I'm satisfied with where it's at, I do usually add a little bit of liquid adhesive just to make sure that it's going to stick well, and then I can cut off the rest of that excess pull tab piece there, or I guess the swish tab. I don't know, what is it called? The swish bar? I don't know. And cut off the rest of that, and then of course I'm going to bring in my base here and some foam tape. So the foam tape is probably the hardest part of this one, at least for me. It's always trying to figure out exactly where I can put my foam tape. So usually I put it where I want it to end, and I start with that one. Keep in mind you don't want to put foam tape where your mechanism is going to move. So you can use, I use the 1/8 inch foam tape strips all the way along the bottom. Seems to work out fine for me. I don't run into any, if you're going with thicker, you have to watch to make sure that you don't bump it on the bottom. So just continually moving that pull tab, making sure that you're not running into any issues there. And that should pop up that base piece just enough that it is going to not hinder the movement of your pull tab. So once I am content with how this one is, your foam tape is going to stop your mechanism. So if you don't want your mechanism to go too far, using your foam tape as your stopper here and there is kind of the way to go. I did bring in the tape measure just a little bit, or the ruler just a little bit, to make sure that I was all within my ground piece and it was fine. So keep in mind, if I'd have gone further up with that, it wouldn't have gone down as far. So, and then of course just coming in with that one. I do show you in the next one, you get to see 2 cards today because I did one in vertical and one in landscape. So the other thing is to make sure that you're not hindering the movement of that pull tab piece, because that pull tab piece is going to kind of flex up and down. I should have run through the die cut machine to get a little notch out of the backside panel here. I didn't. It's okay. I end up just flipping it over, making a couple of snips, just so you have a little bit easier time grabbing the pull tab piece. At least that's my preferred method. Now I'm going to move on to my sentiment here. So I'm just going to stamp this on some coordinating pink cardstock, add in on some VersaFine Onyx black ink, and then of course I'm going to heat set some clear embossing powder over the top. It gives it that nice glossy shine. And of course, I did multiples, so I stamped multiples at the same time. My preferred here is Ranger's Ultra Fine Embossing Powder. I think that's what it is. Let me see. It's sitting right. Embossing Powder Clear. I don't even think this is the ultra fine stuff, but you can get the fine stuff. I find that the clear works well. They do have a thick one, and the thick one I would say is probably not for sentiments. It's more for technique stuff. So keep that in mind when looking at embossing powders. So I will heat set those, and then of course bring in the sentiment strip to kind of cut it out. So I didn't have the right proper length sentiment strip, and I wanted it flagged on both ends. So I'm just going to cut one end, cut it, and then move it over and cut the other end out. Now I did bring in a piece of black cardstock to cover up my pull tab piece. You could definitely just pull it, do it in black right away, but I don't have a thick black that's going to be strong enough. I also like the extra thickness on that pull tab piece. It just kind of gives it a little bit more strength, and so you don't have to worry about it bending and bowing when young kids might be playing with it. So I'm just going to cut that flush, make sure that is flush to the side. Now, if you are making it so you have a little bit of a border, you could definitely leave a stick out piece there. So keep that in mind. I would probably recommend that if you don't want to do the little cut afterwards to, for little fingers to grab onto, or big chubby fingers like mine to grab onto. So I'm going to add the little bright pink pull tab. I don't know, it's the arrow. It tells you what to do, right? Pull off all of my adhesive from my double-sided tape here. And then I will add a little bit of glue onto the top. This gives me a teeny tiny little bit of wiggle room. Not a whole lot of wiggle room, but a little bit. So if I don't line it up properly the first time, I can usually move it around without too many issues, right? So now it's just the final placement here. I'm just trying to figure out the final placement on my sentiment. I'm going to keep that down nice and low. And then, of course, I'm going to add my robot on top of it before I put it down, because then I know I'm going to get my placement right for the most part. Yeah. So I'll add some liquid glue to that one and then set him down. I think I didn't put it behind. I don't remember. Some of them I might have added liquid glue. Had to make sure it dried before I could play with it. The struggle's real. So it was catching on his little antenna thing, so I just trimmed it up just a teeny tiny little bit. And then I end up adding a piece of foam tape behind his head here because it's just going to cause trouble otherwise. So this way it doesn't get caught. And then just flipping the wings a little bit. It gives them a little bit of shape and movement. and hopefully it clears a little bit better. I maybe should have had him flying a little bit higher up in the air, but whatever. It was still fun to play with, so, you know, all is not lost. So once I finish playing with that one, I will bring in some glitter for the little heart on him, and then of course I added some glitter to the wings on this one, and some glossy accents to that glowing eyeball, I guess. I don't know, it's a robot. What do you call it? I would say, I don't know, eyeball. So then I will set that one off to the side and let it dry, and then I'm coming in with my next one. So I colored some of those other robots that look like they're falling apart and in need of a flying wrench. Plus, I liked the option to put it on the opposite side of the card. So this one is a landscape, kind of done the same way as the other one. I could play with I think I did some of them in that third hole. I did some of them in the second hole. It really depended upon where, I wanted, how far you want it to fly, where you want it to fly, those types of things. I did end up cutting off, I think, like a little bit of the side on that one, just a little bit, because when I cut my pieces, they definitely shrunk a little bit. So keep that in mind. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it wasn't too bad. Maybe it was just off. But if you move your base piece down just a tiny little bit and draw with a pencil, kind of giving you a line there, it helps with the placement of your foam tape. Yes, most definitely. I also did a little dot of where I wanted my line to stop, or where I wanted my little wrench to stop. So it made, once I did one of them, it was a lot easier to do multiples of them because, I remembered all of the tricks to making it work, or, what I needed to do to make it work and not hinder the movement of all the things. Yeah. So those foam strips again, bringing them in on the top, and then of course on the side, bringing them up to the line that I already have. Now on this one, you can, if you want your little flying creature to go up and over, you can definitely do that, or come from underneath, or it's hiding. Maybe it's coming out of the water. I did a frog one that was like jumping from into the water, and so he kind of like goes down in, or he's jumping out of the water. I don't remember. It's been a while. Anyways, so you can definitely have it underneath the little platform there and go that route. There's many options for this one, but this one definitely went a whole lot faster than my first one. So yeah, it is what it is, right? So I'm just gonna kind of put that where it needs to be on the end there. Make sure that everything is lined up good. And then I will bring in that double-sided score style tape again, put that on about where I'm going to end up putting my little flying wrench. And then I will place this one on there. So I did these for Valentine's for, of course, my nephews and my nieces. And then I sent one to Mrs. Benjamin's class in Kentucky because they were looking for Valentines from around the United States or the world. So I sent those. And then, of course, this one also worked for my craft roulette project for, I don't remember, last week. So whatever week we're on. Anyway, so it worked for my craft roulette, which was kind of nice. So the fairy wings on the wrench, or the glitter would work for the fairy. The light morning colors I went with, if you've watched. I've watched sunrises all the time, but the really soft colors at the start of sunrise, the pinks and the blues and the purples. And if you don't look at the opposite side with sunrises, the other side usually has some gorgeous purples, light purples, and light blues. Anyways, those were my color palettes, and of course, it was a card for a teenager, so, I have some teenage nieces. That's where it's going. And what was the last one? Oh, the bow. So I'm cheating on the bow, kind of, sort of. So the little crank on top of the little robot's head is bow-shaped. So that's my bow. At least it looks like a bow to me. So that's where I was going with that one. So for this one, I brought in a different sentiment from Ink Road Stamps. Totally Buggin, I'm here for you. So this one is kind of like a, maybe Valentine's Day isn't your thing. So this one was kind of more towards that one. So the Totally Bugging, I think, is from I don't remember the stamp set. I will list it down below. So I cut that one out using a banner die, and I didn't like the banner part of it, or it just wasn't going to fit on my card base that I wanted it to fit on. So I just ended up cutting the flags off of that one, and then I will put that one on totally. Now, the fun part of this one is it can go off the card base, because it doesn't really matter as long as it's resting on the card base when it is closed, and then it can fly off. It's no big deal. Yeah. And then, of course, with this one, I don't think I had this one fly as far because I didn't want it to go behind my robot. Now, I may have brought in some googly eye. I mean, you know, we all love a good googly eye, right? So I did one with 2 googly eyes. These ones are like, I don't know, there was like, I think this is like a variety pack, so I think there's like 4 googly eye sizes in this one, and this was like, I think the second biggest one or the second smallest one. I don't know, it was one of the middle ones. But I brought in my glossy black jelly pen there and added some black to the other eye wall, and I left it little. I thought it would be fun to kind of, you know, make it look like it's really loose in its marbles. Yeah. And then, of course, adding some glitter in onto those wings again for, you know, sparkling. And you can't have, you know, something cutesy without some glitter. Let's be honest. Wings need to be glittery. So I added some glitter to all of them. And then, of course, I'm going to add a little bit of glitter onto the robot as well. And then I brought in the Ohuhu metallic markers here. And I'm just going to add some little dots onto the rivets there, or the bolts, because I thought it was kind of a cute little addition, and it makes them pop a little bit more. So there is that completed one. Here is another one in motion with some happy valentines on the inside. Of course, I switched up my sentiments just a little bit, just kind of playing around with how the layout was. And then, of course, this one has got both of the little googly eyes on it. This one doesn't have any googly eyes. I think I came back later and added some glossy accents to his eyeballs, though. And then, of course, the one with 1 googly eye and 1 glossy eye. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you have questions, ask me. I will try to answer them as best I can for this one. You know, I was playing with this one quite a bit, so I had fun with these, and I hope you know, had fun watching the video. Anyways, there are the stills. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. Go check out Craft Roulette, and, you know, we'll see you back here soon. Bye!